Alien warships emerged from null space, their arrival tearing through the void like claws through silk. Four sleek, obsidian ships, each shaped like a spearhead, appeared above an unassuming planet, matte black vessels designed not to be seen until it was too late. The ships didn't shimmer or hum or burn. They simply were, silent predators from another world. Inside the command ship, the atmosphere buzzed with focused aggression. Commander Soren stood motionless, her crimson skin glowing faintly in the blue haze of tactical displays. Her horns, thick and ridged like volcanic stone, cast sharp shadows across her face. "Report," she growled, a voice like rumbling basalt. "No comm signals. No satellites. One Class G planet, lifeless by standard classification," replied Kima, the tech officer, her blue skin bathed in the glow of her console. "But energy readings are off the chart, deep, old, stable. Not natural. A weapon?" asked Thera, the weapons specialist, her emerald green skin shining under maintenance lights. Her voice rasped like blades on stone, her black dagger-like horns twitching with interest. "Or a vault," Soren's second-in-command, Vale, murmured. Her eyes never left the ochre-maroon planet spinning on the central display. "The Empress ordered this system purged before colonization. No delays. No relics." Soren turned to the youngest of them, a lavender-skinned empath named Riven. She stood apart, eyes closed, listening to the world without using her ears. "What do you feel?" Soren asked. Riven's voice came soft and musical, stillness. "Loneliness. It's waiting, like a mountain waiting for rain. There's a presence. One. Quiet. Alone. Lock on. We're going down." They teleported, a flicker, a pulse, then they stood in formation in an enormous chamber. The air shimmered faintly. Walls of smooth, glowing stone rose around them, unblemished, seamless, timeless. No adornments. No signs of life. Just silence. And at the chamber's center, seated calmly on a simple dais, was a man. Human. His skin tanned, his dark hair short, his body marked with ancient tattoos, stellar maps inked across muscular arms and chest. He wore a sleeveless vest, cargo pants, boots that looked 100 years old. He sat comfortably, almost casually, like someone expecting company. The four warriors spread into a lethal perimeter, weapons raised. The man lifted his head slowly, gazing at each of them in turn. His eyes, older than they had any right to be, glimmered with something unreadable. Then he smiled. And he said, "So, who goes first?" Soren's teeth clenched. The disrespect was impossible. The calm in his voice wasn't submission, it was certainty. She stepped forward, weapon aimed square at his heart. "I am Commander Soren of the Jiran Ascendancy," she barked. "You are trespassing on a sector marked for sterilization. Identify yourself. Now." The man didn't flinch. He rose to his feet in one smooth motion, hands open, unarmed, eyes calm. "I'm called Kale," he said. "This isn't your space. This isn't anyone's. It's the archive. I'm just its caretaker." He stepped off the dais. Thera's finger twitched on her trigger. He ignored her completely. "You don't need those weapons. Not here. You're not enemies, not yet. Spare us the riddles," Soren snapped. "Explain this place." Kale tilted his head slightly. "I'll give you access to the outer rooms. Air, food, shelter. You'll stay one cycle. Then you leave. You're making demands." Vale said, nearly laughing. "No," Kale said, "I'm offering courtesy." Then he turned and walked away, not looking back. Just before he stepped through an arch of living light, he spoke again. "Riven. Come." The empath froze. Her name. He knew her name. How? Soren growled, go with him. Pull the truth from his mind. I want command protocols. Defense systems. Anything. Riven hesitated, something stirred inside her, something ancient and raw. Not fear. Not exactly. She nodded and followed Kale into the light. He led her to a plain white room. 2 chairs. Nothing else. You may begin when ready, he said, eyes closed, calm as ever. Riven sat. Her psychic training told her this was a trap. Her instinct said it wasn't. She reached into his mind. There were no defenses. Just a door. She stepped through. And drowned. Memories overwhelmed her. A flood of sensation, color, emotion. A sun's warmth. Ocean salt on her lips. A woman's face, lit with love. Then loss, and silence, and decades of solitude. The archive song flowed through him, a song of stars and endings. She gasped, yanked herself back, her body trembling. Kale opened his eyes. It's a lot to take in. He offered no comfort. Just understanding. Riven knelt on the cold floor, disarmed not by weapons, but by feeling. A single tear ran down her cheek. Hours passed. Soren grew impatient. Thura, prepare breach teams. The core is the control center. Force entry. Alarms echoed through the archive. Kale watched their movements on a holographic display. He sighed. They're going to try to destroy it, Riven whispered. No, Kale replied. They won't get the chance. He placed his palm on a wall. The walls shimmered gold. Elsewhere, Thura's breach charges detonated, soundlessly. The blast vanished. Absorbed. Nullified. The archive's defense had begun. Cutting beams passed through nothing. Doors sealed behind the invaders. Floors dropped into chasms. Nanites flowed like mist, harmlessly disassembling weapons. In minutes, the Giron's finest were trapped. Unhurt. But defeated. The message was crystal clear. We can erase your war without touching you. In silence, Soren fumed, powerless. And in the heart of the archive, Riven looked at Kale. Everything she knew about victory and power had just been rewritten. And she wasn't sure she ever wanted to go back. The chamber was still. Kale sat across from Riven, his posture relaxed but unwavering, like stone warmed by sunlight. Riven, still trembling from the psychic plunge she'd taken into his memories, barely managed to hold herself upright. Her fingers dug into the arms of the chair, grounding herself in the real. She had seen stars born and die in his mind. Felt the ache of 1,000 years of solitude. A love so vast it scarred his soul, and the silence that followed, like a cathedral of grief. How, she breathed, how did you? Kale didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood and walked toward the far wall, which melted open at his touch into another archway of warm, pearlescent light. You've seen the edge of it, he said over his shoulder. Now you need to understand the core. She followed, her legs shaky beneath her. The passage led into a space unlike the others, darker, deeper, almost sacred. At its center sat a structure that pulsed faintly with golden light. 2 cradles, side by side, like thrones carved by time. What is this place? She whispered. The interface, Kale replied. For the archive to reveal itself completely, it needs 2 minds. Yours. And mine. Her heart fluttered. Why me? Because you asked the right question, Kale said softly. You didn't come to conquer. You came to know. Riven stared at the cradles, her fingers brushing the edge. The moment felt vast, final, like stepping off a cliff with no bottom in sight. And what question should I ask? The only one that matters. She sat down. Kale did the same beside her. The cradles shimmered, energy rising around them like water beginning to boil. Their fingers found each other, linked across the divide. His eyes found hers. No secrets, he warned. No fear, she replied. And the archive opened. It wasn't a flood this time. It was harmony. Their minds braided together, conscious threads spinning into one whole. She felt his memories again. Not as an intruder, but as a partner. The aching void of his solitude met her own hollow indoctrination. His wonder clashed with her cynicism. His memories of trees and oceans brushed against her sterile upbringing. She gave him discipline. He gave her awe. Together, they asked the archive. What is your purpose? The answer came not in voice or light, but in a stream of raw history. They saw humanity as it had once been, explorers, dreamers, warriors. A civilization of impossible brilliance that spread across galaxies like wildfire. First contact with 1,000 races. Peaceful. Purposeful. Hopeful. Then came the dark. Not an empire. Not a fleet. A hunger. An entity from the spaces between galaxies. A devourer of complexity. It consumed not just matter, but information. Music, memory, life. Humanity fought. Not to win, but to delay. They hid worlds, erased coordinates, buried archives like this one behind walls of time and myth. Kale was the last of them. A sentinel. A lighthouse. Not a weapon. A warning. Riven reeled. Her thoughts convulsed under the weight of it. But there was more. A deeper layer stirred in her own genetic memory, ancestral echoes not touched in lifetimes. She saw her own people, the Terran, 1,000,000 years ago. Before they were soldiers. Before they were zealots. They were scientists, astronomers. They had faced the devourer once before. And they had made a prophecy, that one day, a short-lived but brilliant species would stand between the dark and the stars. They had seen humanity's coming. And her kind had forgotten. Twisted the legend into conquest. The Terran weren't meant to cleanse. They were meant to join. Her breath caught. She tore herself back from the interface with a gasp, tears streaming freely. Her body felt hollow, emptied and filled all at once. Kale gently released her hand and stood. You see it now, he said. She nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in her throat. It was always you, she whispered. He didn't smile. His expression held only sorrow. It should never have taken this long. Their moment shattered with the sharp ping of a priority alert on her wrist comm. The voice of her sister, Jessa, crackled through. Riven, the fleet just jumped in. 63 cycles early. They're demanding a report. Before she could respond, another voice took over the comm, cold, commanding. Soren. I'll handle it. A display bloomed into existence between them, showing Soren on her command bridge. Her face was granite. The fleet behind her loomed like a wall of fire and steel. Majesty, she said, addressing the Terran Empress. We found a human outpost. Ancient. Infected with psychic corruption. He's detained our empath. Requesting orbital clearance for sterilization. Riven stepped forward. Soren, no. That's not what. You've been compromised, Soren cut her off. Your empathy has made you weak. The Empress's face remained unreadable. Main cannons, Soren ordered. Prepare to fire. Panic surged in Riven's chest. She turned to Kale. We have to stop them. I can't make that choice for you, he said quietly. But the archive can show them, if you help me open it. She activated a private channel. Jessa, Thera, listen to me, she whispered. She's lying. Kale is not our enemy. The archive is not a threat. It's the key. Her report was inconsistent, said Jessa, hesitation thick in her voice. I've been analyzing the defensive logs. There was no aggression. He disabled us without harming us, Thera admitted. That was strength. Riven drew in a steadying breath. Then delay the fleet. I'm going back in. She turned to Kale, fire in her amethyst eyes. You said it needed 2 minds. He studied her, no trace of doubt. It's a full fusion, he warned. There's no going back. Good, she said. I'm tired of who I was. They stepped toward the cradles again. Outside, in orbit, the sky turned red. The first lances of energy screamed down toward the archive. And missed. A golden dome flared into existence, catching every beam and reflecting it harmlessly into the void. Inside, Kale and Riven lay side by side, their hands entwined. The archive waited. And this time, they answered together. The interface hummed with anticipation as Kale and Riven settled into the twin cradles. Unlike their first, fragmented union, this was deliberate, a conscious merging of thought, soul, and memory. Kale reached first. His mind touched hers like warm mist sliding across frozen glass. This time, there was no hesitation, no resistance. Riven opened to him, not as an infiltrator or invader, but as a partner. The connection deepened. They felt the world fall away. Not just this world, all worlds. What rose in its place was sensation beyond language. Kale offered the scent of earth spring, the laughter of a child whose face he no longer remembered, the sting of sand swept across a desert battlefield. Riven gave him the weight of command, the cold steel of loyalty, the crushing loneliness of a soldier bred for war. They saw each other not in snapshots but in soul prints. Kale felt her sorrow like it was his own. She touched his hope like it had always been hers. And together, they turned to the archive. Not as 2 minds, but as one voice. Show them. All of them. The truth. The archive obeyed. Across the Geron fleet, across every ship, every screen, every neural link, the archive broadcast a cascade of data so raw, so overwhelming, it bypassed logic and struck directly at the core of memory and identity. Every warrior saw what Kale and Riven had seen. Humanity's rise, and their fall. Not to hubris. But to mercy. They saw the devourer, a void between galaxies, a static storm that fed on complexity. They saw humanity retreat, not in fear, but in strategy, building hidden fortresses, embedding guardians like Kale in silence, to wait for allies who would one day understand. And then they saw the Geron. Not as saviors. But as allies gone astray. Their sacred crusade. A misunderstanding. A corrupted prophecy. They were never meant to purge. They were meant to preserve. The flood of revelation silenced the fleet. Weapons dimmed. Commands choked in throats. In the interface chamber, Kale and Riven slowly separated, threads untangling, but never entirely disconnected. They gasped for breath, blinking in the low golden light. Their hands found each other again. Muscle memory now. A voice echoed through the archive. It wasn't Soren. It wasn't a command. It was the Empress herself. Her voice filled the chamber, regal and slow, like the toll of a cathedral bell. We have been mistaken, she said. Forgive us. Kale looked at Riven. She nodded, voice thick. They saw. There is nothing to forgive, Kale said quietly. Only work to do. The archive's corridors, once sterile, now pulsed with life.
An alliance had been forged, not with treaties, not with diplomacy, but with shared memory and unassailable truth. Soren was stripped of her command. Her refusal to acknowledge the truth, her devotion to fire and fury, had made her obsolete. Her zealotry, once a badge of honor, was now a hollow relic. Riven, the youngest, the empath, the one who listened, was named ambassador to the archive. Her mission was no longer conquest. It was understanding. Days passed. In the archive's vast observatory, Kale and Riven stood side by side, gazing at the stars beyond. The Geron fleet now orbited Aegis, not as an invading force, but as protectors. Ships no longer aimed inward. They faced the darkness beyond the rim. "You feel it, don't you?" Riven said softly. Kale nodded. "It's stirring." In the archive's deep listening posts, subtle changes in background noise, quantum flickers, entropy differentials, hinted at a distant hunger awakening. The Devourer was coming. 3 years, Kale said. "Maybe less." "That's time enough," Riven said, though her voice trembled. He turned to her, touched her cheek. "You're not the same woman who stepped into this room." "I know," she whispered. "I'm more. Because of you."
In orbit, the beginnings of a new ship took form. It didn't look like a weapon. It looked like a sculpture, sleek and strange, a lattice of harmonics, crystalline bones singing under the stress of construction. The Ode. Riven stepped forward, activating the design display. "It's more than just a ship. It's a message." Kale nodded. "And you're the only one who can help deliver it." They descended to the fabrication chamber. Tith, the brilliant blue-skinned technician, was already there, guiding a team of hybrid engineers, Geron and Cynian, through the complex process. "This isn't like building warships," she said, eyes gleaming with intensity. "We're constructing resonance, a vessel that projects meaning, not mass." "And its core?" Riven asked. "A psychoharmonic resonator," Tith replied. "Powered by the archive, shaped by thought. It will only work with a crew that shares purpose." "That's rare." Kale and Riven shared a look. "Then we'll need more than warriors," Kale said. "We'll need believers." Elsewhere, Thera led training sessions with new recruits, but she no longer trained them to shoot. She taught them leverage. Tactics. The grace of human martial arts. Power not as brute force, but precision. Riven smiled as she watched. She turned to Kale. "We've changed them." "No," Kale said, brushing her hand. "They changed themselves. We just showed them the mirror." That night, they stood once again in the observatory. The ship's skeleton floated against the stars, half-born. "I thought I'd be alone forever," Kale said quietly. "You were," Riven replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "So was I." He turned, pulled her close. "I don't know what happens next." "Neither do I. But we'll face it together." Their kiss was less a passion and more a promise, not an end to the story, but a beginning. In a universe that had forgotten what it meant to feel, two souls had remembered. And through them, a galaxy would learn to dream again. The War Council met beneath the glowing lattice of the archive's central nexus, a place once guarded by silence, now filled with the voices of an uneasy alliance. The Empress appeared as a towering projection, cloaked in shadowed regalia, her face impassive but her eyes sharper than any blade. Beside her stood Tith, ever analytical, Thera, coiled with energy, and Riven, no longer the youngest daughter of a dying crusade, but the envoy of something entirely new. At her side, as always now, was Kale. Tith spoke first. "The Kronos probe has gone dark. Initial signal degradation was minor. Now, silence. Absolute entropy in the telemetry stream. Quantum structure collapsed. The archive interprets this as an approach," Kale finished, voice low. "The Devourer has begun to move." Admiral Uran, a weathered Geron commander, snarled, "Then we act. We summon the fleet. We purge it." "You can't purge entropy," Kale said, evenly. "This isn't a foe you can outgun. What do you suggest, human?" Urin's tone dripped with disdain. That we sing to it? Yes, Kale answered. Exactly that. Gasps rippled across the hull. He gestured, and the holospace bloomed, revealing the ode. Not just a ship, but a waveform given form. Its hull was a mesh of living crystal. Its engines, folded resonance chambers. Its heart, a psychoharmonic core powered by the archive's memory, and its mind, would be theirs. This is no weapon. It's an idea, Kale explained. The Devourer consumes complexity, thought, pattern, data. The only thing it can't feed on is something it doesn't understand. Something it can't predict. Something truly creative. Poetry, the Empress murmured. Hope, Riven added. Kale nodded. A signal of resonance. A harmonic anti-pattern. Not to destroy the Devourer, but to change it. Urin scoffed. Madness. No, said the crystalline envoy of the Cynian Confederacy, speaking through a harmony of tones. This is a viable concept. Our people once studied deep field resonance. This aligns with our ancient models. Tith was already nodding. It's theoretical. But sound. We don't confront entropy. We outsing it. Then who flies this thing? Asked another commander. Riven stepped forward. We do. The Empress studied her daughter. Her voice was gentle but heavy. You've changed. I've become, Riven said. Kale showed me the truth. I chose to become more than I was. And what happens if this fails? Then at least we die trying to create, Kale said. Not destroy. A moment of heavy silence. Then the Empress, ruler of 1,000 systems, said simply. Build it. The council broke. Engineers scattered. Fabricators spun. A world moved with purpose. In the final nights before departure, Kale and Riven returned to their quarters, a fusion of human softness and Juran order. There was no war room talk, no strategy briefings. Just two people, holding the moment in their hands like something delicate and brief. Riven stood by the viewport, her lavender skin awash in starlight. The ode glimmered beyond, complete now. Waiting. It's beautiful, she whispered. And terrifying. He came to her. Rested his chin on her shoulder. You're afraid. I am, she admitted. So am I. She turned to face him, eyes wide. What if I can't hold the connection this time? What if it breaks me? It won't, he said. Because I'll be there. They kissed. Not urgently, but with reverence. Like sealing a pact. That night, their bodies joined not out of desire, but trust. A silent promise, we begin together. We end together. Their bond, formed in fusion, tempered in understanding, sealed now in touch and thought, was no longer a miracle. It was a fact. Launch day. The ode hovered above the archive like a frozen lightning bolt. Kale and Riven stood side by side at the boarding platform, flanked by their crew, Tith, calm and brilliant, Thara, now commander of the defense escort, and a silent figure in black armor. Soren. She had returned. Not as a zealot. As a guardian. She said nothing. Just gave a nod. Riven returned it. Kale turned to her one last time. Once we enter the node, there's no retreat. We won't come back the same. I don't want to come back the same. They boarded. The ode responded to them instantly, lights brightening, energy field stabilizing, tones rising in a welcoming chord. It knew them. It was them. At the helm, Kale laid his hands on the control node. Riven placed hers atop his. The stars opened. The jump wasn't a leap. It was a refrain. The ode didn't travel like a ship. It sang its path across folded dimensions, slipping between probability threads. When it arrived at the terminus, the edge of the void, there was no warning. Just silence. And then, noise. Static. Black. The Devourer. A shifting impossibility. A storm of unbeing. It pulsed with nothingness, a hunger that devoured data, identity, soul. Kale and Riven fused their thoughts. The ode responded. It broadcast not a command, but a memory. A song of rain falling on stone. A child's laugh. A lover's final breath. The Devourer reeled. And then struck back. Pain tore through the ode. Riven screamed, not in fear, but in defiance. Hold, Kale whispered. Stay with me. She reached deeper, into the core of their shared memory. She offered the Devourer something it had never encountered. Compassion. A story. Of an ancient race, desperate to survive. Of love born across species. Of a galaxy learning to forgive. Of two broken souls becoming whole. And the Devourer paused. Not destroyed. But, reshaped. A single resonance returned from the void. A note of curiosity. Then silence. They awoke together, still fused in mind and body, the ode orbiting a place where nothing should exist. The Devourer was gone. Not slain. Transformed. A being of hunger, given music. They returned home. Victorious not in conquest. But in connection. 3 years later, the galaxy had changed. The archive, once a tomb, was now a beacon. Around it orbited not fleets of war, but ships of learning, diplomacy, and creation. The Sentinel Alliance had grown beyond the Geran and Signians. Dozens of species now stood united under a banner not of domination, but remembrance. At its heart, Kale and Riven. The ode had been preserved in orbit, a monument to what was possible when minds truly met. It hummed softly still, like a string waiting to be plucked once more. Inside the archive, children laughed, some human, some Geran, some neither. They played among halls that once echoed only with silence. The archive taught now, not warned. In the observatory, Kale stood watching a field of stars with Riven at his side, their hands always finding each other. They had become myth, not because of power, but because of what they chose not to do. They had loved. They had listened. They had created. Riven leaned against him, her voice barely above a whisper. You think the Devourer will return? Maybe, he said. But if it does, it won't find us unready. It'll find us singing. And with that, the scene fades, not into darkness, but into light. A soft pulse of energy ripples through space. A song that once saved the galaxy, plays again. If you felt even a fragment of this journey in your chest, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who still believes science fiction can mean something. Because stories like these, they're not just about war. They're about hope. Thanks for watching, and remember, the stars are listening.